Live like no one else now so you can live like no one else later. This is a famous quote by Dave Ramsey, and I want to take it beyond the simple concept of finances because we often hear about live like no one else now so you can live like no one else later. It means to sacrifice now, to not do everything that everyone else is doing, to, give up on some pleasures that are happening in current moment. Maybe instead of going to that prestigious 4-year university out of state, save your money and go to community college. That's something that I'm doing. Or, maybe instead of drinking and going out every week with your friends, maybe choose to stay inside and save some money, save some time, go and spend that time developing yourself, developing your businesses, going and doing something that might set you forward, set you apart from everyone else. And that's the concept. So you can go and live this amazing life later. So you can be able to enjoy your things. So you can have financial freedom. So you can have wealth. So you can have a healthy body, being in a relationship with the amazing woman that you want to be in a relationship with. So you can do all these things that are different. So it's this whole entire concept of, you you give up some of these like financial things now just so you can be able to enjoy it later. But I also want to take it to another level. How about you give up, some of the time you spend scrolling on your phone, some of the time you spend, just mindlessly commenting things on, Twitter, or, how about you give up some time where you might have spent, doing something like just unproductive, something that, is it feels good for a moment, but it's not gonna benefit you later. Like how about you go and finally give up that addiction to lust that you have? How about you give up these things? Because not everyone else is doing them. Like, let's face it, common in society, people love lust. Everything now is all flashy, and it doesn't matter. You can be scrolling on Instagram and you get something that's completely out of your reach, whether it's on TikTok or Instagram or even on YouTube. Just things that are just like, what on earth is that? Like, it has nothing to do with anything that you ever look at. You know, Even in music, everything, it just seems like every single thing is just focused on, things of lust or things of greed. Like, you see all these big celebrities and everything is gambling. It seems like gambling used to be looked upon as, this like, oh, that's a problem. If you have a gambling addiction, that's a problem. Now you see all these big streamers and everyone is gambling. Everyone seems to have like a gambling addiction, and it seems like it's perfectly normal to just blow everything away and to just gamble like normally, like it just like every single weekend. Like you're just like, what? Like all these different things, like addictions and all these things, they just seem normal now. Everyone seems to be doing it. But if you truly want to advance in life, if you want to live a life of purpose over pleasure, if you want to live a life to where you're set apart, you're actually able to enjoy yourself later. You're just able to live a life of freedom without burdens. I say sacrifice that. Don't live like them. Don't, all your friends might be going to the club, but you're like, you know what? I want that woman of God. I want that woman who is going to be the mother of my kids. That's what I want for my life. I want a woman who isn't gonna be out partying and going over with the next guy that she meets at a club. Then you might say, you know what? Rather than being at a club, I'm gonna instead look for a wife. Look for my future wife somewhere else. Look for my future wife in the church. Look for my future wife in a coffee shop, like in a place where you'll find someone of value rather than finding someone just gonna be out partying, acting crazy, and it's just like you have to really look at what do you want for your life? What do you want later? We have to I know it's important to live in the present, but you also have to think about your future. Your present affects your future. So if you make a bunch of mistakes, if you're doing a bunch of careless and reckless things now, think about how it's going to screw up your future. Truly think about that. Do you want, you end up making all these impulsive purchases. You buy this new car to be flashy, impress girls and like all your friends in college. You go into this apartment that you can barely afford. You get a loan for, this phone, for this boat that you can barely afford. And then, later on when you're in your mid to late 30s and your kids are asking, Dad, why don't we have this? Why can't we go on like vacation to these other countries, like some of these other people on social media, or like the neighbors' kids and different things like that, or like my friends at school and their families. And then you have to reply, oh yeah, well, I made some irresponsible choices. I made some reckless decisions and purchases back in my younger days that, I'm still in debt for, and that kind of hurt me now. Like, truly think about that. Like, we have parents that unfortunately made decisions like that affect us now, and we grew up wanting, to be able to have a future. And as much as they love us and they wanted to provide for us, they just weren't able to do all the things that necessarily they would want to do and that we would want to have because of decisions that were made in the past. Think about your future. Think about your future kids. Think about, your friends. Think about your relationships. Think about who you're becoming. This is a constant thing I focus on my channel. You need to focus on who you're becoming. Every single habit, every single goal needs to align with who you want to become. If you want to become a successful leader, if you want to become a successful entrepreneur, you can't make all these same reckless decisions. If you want to make a risky decision, you have to do something where you're betting on yourself to make more money, to be able to pour back into others, to provide value. Like, those are things, like, you can't wake up super late all the same time. Like, you can't spend all this time wasted scrolling on social media. You have to realize that the decisions you're making now affect your future. Don't make the mistake of living in pleasure now to sacrifice your purpose. Because what I can tell you right now, purpose is like a seed. You plant the seed of purpose. You start by, you decide one day, as they say on self-improvement on social media, some men wake up at 18, some men, wake up at 36, and some men never wake up. It's time to wake up. With purpose is when you finally decide to wake up. You plant that seed into the ground. And then, you go and fertilize it and water it. And so that means you start pouring into it. You start changing your habits. You start setting goals. Start fixing your priorities around, this purpose, around adding value to others and truly seeking it. And, and then a part of growing a seed, a part of growing plants is you have to pick out the weeds. So the things that, are negatively going to affect it, the things that are going to take up the nutrients and soil around it. So you start saying, oh, you know what, these negative relationships, boom, let me pluck that out. Oh, those girls that, they might be pretty, but like they had no value to my life. They're not a helper. They're not what God called me to, marry. There's someone that's going to drag me down, pluck that out, like, you have to realize all these different things you have to pluck out. It's like weeds. You're plucking out, and watch as over time you're gonna see that seed grow. It's gonna germinate, and then it takes some time. It's gonna burst out of the soil, and then you first start seeing a little sprout, and you start seeing the first signs of growth. You start seeing the first little indicators. That's kind of where I am right now. At this point, like, I'm seeing like growth of my channel and my social media following and the people that I'm helping, which is absolutely amazing. And then, it starts growing and eventually starts growing into this, it gets a tree trunk, and then it starts building this bark and its trunk, and it starts growing into this tree, and it starts getting its branches. So your branches are like your first things. Like, you might start making a bit more money there. You might start, being able to get higher level relationships with people and different connections. You start getting all these different things, and then you start getting these branches, and you're just spreading out. And these branches, as you continue to grow upward, and these branches are spreading out, so you're getting these things that you wanted, but you're growing straight up as well. So these things, they come from the purpose, and then you start sprouting leaves, and you start bearing fruit. So you start producing these things that you truly want. You might finally marry that woman of God that you always wanted. That woman, that's the mother of your kids. You begin to have kids. You make your first 6 figures. You start doing all these different things. And, these trees are sprouting, and the fruits are continue to grow, and you continue to grow upward. And that tree and the branches, more branches form, more fruit forms. And then all of a sudden, then the fruit falls, and then you have seeds. And then the things that you're producing start producing more things in other people's lives. And you're watching other people grow around you. And so you have a whole entire forest of trees just growing around you because you decided to be that first one where you started to sacrifice now for later. You decide to live like no one else now so you can live like no one else later, and begin to see the fruits of your labor, and not just your life, but everyone else. Because what's a life where you only live, like you see a bunch of success, but no one else around you? Like that sounds like a pretty sad life. Like, you live a life like you know how many millionaires there are, and they just like, they live on a yacht, and but they're lonely. They don't really have anyone. Or like when they invite friends, their friends can't. They have to pay for all their friends. Like, and it's not just like a thing out of generosity. Like I think it's important to have generosity even with your friends and family. But like they're nowhere in their life. It's like when you die, they're screwed. They have nothing left. They have nothing to showcase for their own families. They have nothing to showcase for anyone. So it's like, rather than living a life like that, live a life where you're building everyone else up. Everyone else is growing. Everyone else is able to produce fruit, and it just continues to grow and grow. And soon you have a forest and this whole entire empire, just because you decided to start, because you decided to sacrifice now for a better future, for your kids. Be the first person, be that one person in your generation, or you end generational poverty, you end generational sickness, you end all these different things in your generation. You say, hey, you know what? I'm stopping it now. And today, I promise my future generations, I promise my kids, kids, and their kids, and their kids, and their kids, and and you change generations. It's all in your powerful power. But if you don't start now, then I'm sorry, later it's gonna be too late, because time is a constant flow. Time is constantly flowing. Time is like a constant current. Time is constantly moving forward. If you don't move forward, then you're falling behind. Because if time is a current, then you have to understand that if you stay stagnant, you're gonna fall behind everything else, and everyone else is moving forward but you. If you don't even, because like a famous quote from Siobhan Salmon, if slow motion is better than no motion. So if you're not even at least moving slowly, you're being left behind. You have to move, take progress, take the steps you need, take action. Sacrifice now for a better tomorrow. And I know, like, you have to be careful with what you do. Don't sacrifice like all your relationships and all these different things, and don't forget to live in the present. But also, don't live a life where everything is just pleasure. Like, don't think of just pleasures of today, but think about purpose of tomorrow. Think about purpose over pleasure. That's my whole tagline. That's my whole entire brand, with like all my on both of my YouTube channels, and my social media, and just everything. Purpose over pleasure. Literally, I'm gonna get that tattooed. Like, I literally want to get that tattooed. But that is my whole entire movement. That is my thing. Purpose over pleasure. Pick purpose over pleasure, because purpose will always lead to everything that you want. Pleasure just leads for a feeling for just a moment. It's just a moment, and then everything else is just wasted. And you don't want to live a life like that. Don't live a life where everything is just about seeking validation, seeking this feeling now, just to have it all, and have it all be lost, have it all be gone in a matter of a moment, in a matter of a couple years, and you're left empty-handed with nothing. Live a life of purpose. And if you want to watch a video that's going to absolutely change your life, click and watch here to watch this whole entire playlist on exactly how to pursue your purpose and absolutely change your life and really lock in. I show you all the steps. Watch this whole entire series of videos in this playlist, and I promise you that your life will be changed, guaranteed.